universe, scientists say, began with a bang 13.7 billion years ago. But how do they know? No human mind was present to record the show. Even so, about 2,800 years ago, an inspired author wrote these words. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth, and the earth was without form and void. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. But how can anyone possibly know what might have occurred billions of years ago, long before any sentient beings appeared, including humankind? Most of us think of consciousness in terms of concepts, thoughts, and images that appear in the mind, that make it seem as if we are separate from an outer environment that likewise appears to be separate from us. But consciousness, when understood holistically, is more than the sum of its parts, that only appear as if separate based on conceptualized interpretations of sensually perceived phenomena. Hello, and welcome to this video series in which we are exploring together the nature of consciousness with respect to the whole of creation, not just the parts. Knowledge, which is images and thoughts, is what we pass along conceptually, culturally, from one generation to the next. So the question we are asking is there a level of conscious awareness that is beyond concept, beyond thought, beyond what is called the known? Since ancient times, enlightened beings have said that life and the universe, as conceived by the human mind, is not what it seems. And in recent times, scientists are discovering the truth of this as well. Enlightened beings often speak of a level of conscious awareness that is beyond concepts and thoughts, awareness that is spaceless, timeless, holistic, and pure. And this new level of pure conscious awareness is just now beginning to flower within humankind. Consciousness in its totality is not limited to concepts and thoughts, nor is it localized within separate entities that we erroneously think of as you and me. Consciousness is not an object or an entity, which is why it can't be located or defined in terms of space or time. Consciousness is, however, the source out of which all phenomena appear. Phenomena that appear in consciousness have no independent reality outside of consciousness itself. A metaphor often used to illustrate this point is an ocean wave. Similar to phenomena appearing within consciousness, a wave has no independent existence beyond the ocean itself. Though it may appear on the surface to be different, other than in its movement, it is not. Similarly, fish that appear as if separate in water cannot in fact be separated from water and live. Absent water, there would be no fish or life of any kind. Just as absent consciousness, there would be no concepts or thoughts of any kind. Movements at the subatomic level of manifested creation, similar to ocean waves, appear as waves and particles that continuously morph into ever more complex structures that likewise appear to be different conceptually, one to another, when in their essence they are the same. Objects appear in consciousness as if they were separate due to conceptual limitations of mind. underlying all concepts, however, there is a pure awareness, pure consciousness, that is indivisibly present in every moment and every experience at all times. I'm speaking of awareness here, not objects or entities that appear within consciousness itself. Furthermore, the images that appear as if on the viewing screen are actually appearing as mental images within the mind that is watching. And beyond the image there is a presence, a stillness that is observing this movement within consciousness, which is the image in the mind. That which is observing in its purest state is not your awareness or my awareness, but universal awareness. It is awareness itself. To illustrate, let's imagine that the dark portion of this visual represents awareness in its purest state, while that which is pictured conceptually within the mind is a movement within awareness that is being interpreted by mind. Thus, concepts, images, and thoughts are the product of mind, because that's what the mind does. Yet despite all this mental activity, the awareness out of which all concepts arise remains unaffected and unmoved by concepts that appear in the mind. To expand upon this analogy, let's now imagine that the space inside this snow globe is pure consciousness at rest, invisible, but also indivisible from anything that might arise from within. But when motivated by an unseen energy, various phenomena suddenly appear. So what we have in this analogy is consciousness at rest, together with consciousness in motion appearing as phenomena, all of which occurs within one integrated holistic reality. One cannot be without the other, and the parts do not comprise the whole, but the whole includes the parts. And just like life in the ocean, the entities that appear as if separate from the space in the globe cannot in fact be separate, or they would no longer appear. The all-encompassing consciousness, represented by space in the globe here, is what allows them to appear. It is the same in the greater universe. Consciousness gives rise to all appearances. Absent consciousness, there are no separate entities. Just as absent entities, there is nothing in the universe of which to be aware. Consciousness is the one and only source out of which manifested creation arises, appearing as concepts in the mind. In this way, the unmanifested and the manifested encompass the whole of creation. That which arises out of consciousness is consciousness in motion, manifesting as the many, while that which is aware of this action is consciousness at rest, revealed as the one. Awakening unto pure awareness, which is to see the many as the one, is what enlightened beings have pointed to since ancient times as the ultimate destiny of humankind. The essential problem for humans, even today, is allegorically dramatized in the biblical story of Adamic man's fall from grace. The word Adam, without a capital A, does not reference a single person, but broadly interpreted means mankind. So the man in the biblical story is differentiated from the generic man that preceded him by the fact that his name is spelled with a capital A. So Adam, in this ancient story, rather than referring to one person, instead signifies an evolutionary milestone in the evolution of consciousness. Adam, with a capital A, metaphorically represents the first humans in whom conceptual awareness came into being. an awareness that is perceived through the senses and interpreted conceptually as images and thoughts in the human mind. Prior to the emergence of Adamic man, this new faculty, through 13.7 billion years of evolutionary time, had not yet developed in any meaningful way. There are actually two levels of conscious awareness pointed to in this story, metaphorically represented by two trees. These two trees, as indicated by their names, represent something much more profound than fig or olive trees that the author surely was aware of in those times. The tree of life, I suggest, represents consciousness out of which all life stems, which is why God encourages Adam to freely eat thereof, because this tree symbolizes the ultimate destiny of humankind. But of the tree of knowledge, that symbolizes the emerging conceptual awareness in humankind, Adam is warned not to eat thereof, or as God says in the story, "Thou shalt surely die." Pure consciousness, symbolized in this story by the tree of life, is the underlying consciousness at rest, out of which consciousness awakens, moves, and appears as the space-time universe. On the other hand, conceptual awareness, the process in which conceptual images arise within consciousness, is differentiated from pure awareness by the tree of conceptual knowledge. So when God warns Adam not to eat thereof, he is warning Adam not to be deceived by the illusion, the maya, that conceptual images newly arising within his mind represent the truth of what actually is, because concepts alone are not truth. Another clue to the deeper allegorical meanings presented in this story is that Adam and Eve did not literally die after spurning God's warning to not get lost in the tree of knowledge, because the death of Adam means something different here. If Adamic man became too enthralled with this new faculty, this conceptually thinking mind that was newly arising within him, he might be misled into a false sense of separateness, and in the process lose sight of or die from a potential to awaken unto a pure awareness beyond the conceptual that was likewise seated within him. So the story of Adam not only foretells of a burgeoning conceptual awareness that was developing in humankind, but also of a potential to awaken unto a pure, non-conceptual awareness that would come forth in enlightened beings of future generations, thus bearing fruit, as Jesus put it, some 100, some 60, some 30-fold. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear, Jesus said. Or restated in contemporary terms, who hath awakened unto this truth, realizes this truth. The inherent problem pointed to in this ancient story impacts us even more so today, because the conceptually thinking mind has become so highly developed that for most of us it encompasses our entire worldview of who we think we are and what we think life is about. So in that sense, the warning God gave in this ancient story has actually come true, to the extent that we continue to cling to the world of appearances, as perceived through the senses and conceived by the mind, and are therefore in danger of the unintended consequence of being cut off, as Jesus put it, from awakening unto a pure awareness that is beyond thought, which is the intended destiny of humankind. Enlightened beings from cultures around the world have pointed this out for thousands of years. Regardless of the name, the teaching is the same. Awakening unto pure awareness is not about acquiring knowledge, which is conceptual, but is about allowing an ever-present non-conceptual knowing to come forth. A knowing not found in a future time or place, but found in the present moment. Here and now. Since the dawn of concepts, images, and thoughts, the human mind has focused energy toward building and refining countless mental structures in an attempt to define and describe life and the cosmos in conceptual terms. As students, we acquire knowledge to help us successfully navigate life's endeavors, based on the theory that knowledge is power. As worshipers, we abide by doctrines and rituals established by authorities of diverse religions, based on the theory that those who do so will be rewarded in heaven after they die. Philosophers postulate that if we rationally investigate the profound questions of our time, we will eventually discover what life and the universe is all about. Scientists search for answers from the subatomic realm to the far reaches of outer space in an attempt to create a conceptualized, unified theory that will finally explain it all. Yet, in spite of all the study, all the books, all the belief systems, all the analytical research that leads to ever more knowledge, the core question remains: can any endeavor that is rooted in the conceptual mind, or must be proven to the satisfaction of the conceptual mind, ultimately lead to an enlightened understanding of the essence and purpose of life and the universe as a whole? Scientists describe everything that appears in the universe in terms of properties, characteristics, probabilities, and qualities of universally expressed phenomena, while generally ignoring the source, the presence of consciousness out of which all conceptualizations arise. To illustrate, let's imagine that this cube represents the phenomenal universe as conceived by the mind. And through comparative analysis using various constructs of mind, scientists attempt to create a conceptual model of the fabric of the universe that they then attempt to prove mathematically, which is to prove conceptually, to see if it's valid or not, to the same mind that's conceiving the universe in the first place. So you see, it's the mind validating the mind. The problem with this approach is the same for all mental disciplines. It ignores the awareness and consciousness that brings concepts to light. Even if it were possible to construct a perfect, unified model of the universe as it appears in space and time, what do we then have? An enlightened view? An enlightened understanding of the essence and purpose of the universe? Or do we simply have another mental construct of how life and the universe appears within the framework of space and time, as interpreted by the conceptual mind of humankind? Perhaps it would be better to ask, what is it that's aware of this cube, for instance, as an object in space and time? Is it me that's aware of it? Is it you as a separate entity over there that's aware of it? You see, no matter how far we push the envelope of knowledge, the essential question, the one we're asking here, remains, which is, what is aware of any and all phenomena that appear in the universe? What is it that's witnessing the phenomenal universe right now, in this moment in time? Light, as described by physics, is not the same as the light of day, for we don't actually see light. We see the result of energy that is somehow stimulated and fueled by light, which then translates into a visual image in the mind. We don't actually know what light is. What we do know is that what appears in consciousness as the material universe seems to begin and end with light. Scientists describe light conceptually in terms of photons and waves. And photons, unlike any other subatomic particles, have neither mass nor rest energy, but appear to be pure action, absent any mass. Thus light never rests, but is always in motion, appearing and disappearing either as photons or waves, into and out of space-time constantly. The duality that is the material universe, therefore, at its most elemental level, appears to be initiated and maintained by light. There are two constants, scientists say, that are applicable to light. One is a pillar of Einstein's special theory of relativity, which says that unlike any other aspect of the universe, the speed of light in a vacuum is invariable at 186,282 miles per second. It's that precise. The second constant, first advanced by Max Planck, one of the fathers of quantum theory, is that each photon or particle of light represents an identical unit of energy. The light of physics, therefore, is stable and precise in both speed and the amount of energy each photon brings to bear in any situation. The fact that light appears to travel at any speed implies space and time, because speed is a measurement of movement through space over time. The fact that each photon appears to represent an identical unit of energy implies that light corresponds to the highest degree of intelligence possible, if intelligence is understood to mean that which is most orderly, most constant, most dependable, bringing about the greatest cosmic good with respect to order rather than chaos in the universe. A conundrum of quantum theory, however, is that photons seem to appear and disappear without leaving a trail of any distance traveled from one point to the next, which belies the idea that light, as an independent entity, travels at all. Perhaps photons, which appear at the most elemental level of creation, do not actually travel, but instead pass into and out of existence between the unmanifested and manifested realms of consciousness, similar to when thoughts and images appear and disappear in the mind. When one packet of light energy materializes, another disappears, maintaining a balance of energy throughout the cosmos, everywhere at once, without traveling through space and time. After all, the notion of travel, which implies space and time, by its very nature is limited to concepts of mind, and concepts are neither pure nor whole. Additionally, Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared, says that the energy of an object is always equal to the mass of the object times the speed of light squared. The only exception to this rule is a photon of light, which is differentiated from all other subatomic particles because it has no mass. All particles other than photons have an amount of mass equal to the level of energy required to maintain their stability. Light, therefore, appears to be the purest form of energy that conveys the greatest degree of intelligence in the known universe. Thus God's command in the ancient story, "Let there be light," whether the author realized it or not, points to, at its most elemental level, the birth of space and time by means of cosmic intelligent design. And the intelligent birth of space and time, absent the concept of time, not only happened 13.7 billion years ago, but is occurring now, constantly, at the most elemental level of creation in this present moment in time. Einstein's equation also predicts that if an object with mass was to attain the speed of light, its energy and mass would become infinite, meaning it would enter a realm beyond light and form. That which is beyond light and form is beyond space and time. And that which is beyond space and time is the ineffable source of all manifestations that appear in consciousness. What the ancients called God, but we now call pure consciousness, absent concept, absent thought, absent all objects of mind. Thus light, which has no mass, seems to transform nothingness into an orderly, energy-filled, mass-filled universe of things. And light arises out of an unmanifested state of consciousness at rest into a manifested state of consciousness in action, which is then perceived and conceptualized by the human mind as the manifested universe. If we come to realize that pure consciousness is everywhere at once, then we might also realize that the arising of intelligent energy in the form of photons of light appears conceptually as if to travel through space and time, because that's how the conceptually thinking mind interprets everything, dualistically, three-dimensionally. The human mind is incapable of interpreting the universe in any other way. Concepts create space and time. They are space and time. While pure consciousness, which is non-conceptual, is not located in any one place, nor does it travel from here to there. Because at the level of pure awareness, there is only here and now. Consciousness at rest, pointed to in the biblical story when God rested, holds within it the potential for any and all manifestations to occur. And consciousness initiates all manifestations by means of light. Consciousness, therefore, is the common ground out of which all manifestations arise. Pure consciousness at rest is unchanging, eternal, beyond the vagaries of space and time. While consciousness in action, in the form of light, enlivens all manifested creation, including humankind. The term particle in physics is a misnomer because nothing is solid in the subatomic world, nor are there any independent entities floating about in space. What scientists erroneously call subatomic particles are actually spinning, spiraling, vibrating moments of energy in perpetual motion, appearing and disappearing in the manifested universe. Spinning creates an electrical charge that interacts with other moments of electrical charge, initiating a range of forces found everywhere, manifesting at all levels, from particles and atoms in the subatomic world to planets and galaxies in the intergalactic universe. The spiral is another pattern found everywhere in the cosmos. The same spiraling motion that originates in elementary particles is evident throughout nature, from fossils to seashells to spiraling water to smoke rising to DNA to weather systems to black holes to faraway galaxies. Nothing, it seems, appears in consciousness absent a spinning, spiraling effect inherent everywhere at all levels of manifested creation. The subatomic world is also in a state of constant flux, dynamically transmuting from one particle to another, from the void into particles and from particles back into the void, all while leaving no trace as to how, when, or where such events will occur next. Thus, the elemental substrata of all structure and form that ultimately appears as the universe, as interpreted by concepts of mind, is a virtual sea of fluctuating, undulating quantum events, of which nothing beyond that is known. What we do know is that fluctuations of this nature occur continuously, unceasingly, eternally. These microscopic vortexes of energy that we erroneously call particles also absorb and emit light. In fact, light appears to pass into and out of everything, as if a messenger arising out of pure consciousness, carrying with it the intelligence of all that is. Light thus engages all form, bringing with it life-giving energy, together with the intelligence of the universe, instantaneously. The manifested universe, as conceptualized by the mind, thus appears and disappears out of fields upon fields of potential that are informed and energized by light. This is the birth and death cycle that occurs in the subatomic realm as vortexes of energy arise out of the void into the realm of space-time and back again, continuously. This movement into and out of phenomenal existence is the eternal present moment, occurring as we speak, happening now, while manifested concepts that appear in space and time are not. The problem with approaching pure consciousness from a conceptual point of view is the search ends where pure consciousness begins. Because pure consciousness cannot be envisioned or conceived in the mind, no matter how complex, subtle, or refined a concept might be. In fact, no theory of mind is ever correct or will ever be complete in the absolute sense. But good theory can be a useful tool for pointing to the absolute, even though it's impossible to approach or describe the absolute in conceptual terms. In 1952, physicist David Bohm published an alternative interpretation of quantum theory that shed light on how quantum theory and the theory of relativity could be unified if they were understood in the context of an integrated, holistic movement between what he called the implicate and explicate order of the universe as a whole. Initial reaction to Bohm's theory from mainstream quantum theorists of the time was understandably negative, some going so far as to call it heresy, not unlike religious traditions have done for thousands of years to those who question the doctrines of the Church. More recently, however, some scientists have come around to similar, if not identical, points of view. Even so, Bohm's implicate order will never be proven by science, because the implicate order points to consciousness itself, in its purest state, absent any quantifiable action or definable property. Such is the reality of the changeless, immovable state of pure consciousness, out of which all manifested phenomena arise. The quantum potential for everything that has been or ever will be is inherently present in this unmanifested state of pure consciousness, waiting to come forth. Bohm's implicate order is equivalent to the peace of God that passeth all understanding spoken of in ancient times, which is an understanding that lies beyond concepts and thoughts. Thus will never be proven by mathematical equation, nor defined in conceptual terms. Bohm's explicate order manifests out of the implicate order and appears in consciousness as space and time. The phenomenal universe, represented by this vortex of energy, arises out of source in one holistic movement that in its totality accounts for the whole of creation. Nothing that appears in the manifested universe is ever separate from source, nor is any manifested form ever separate from any other manifested form, because the universe is one holistically integrated organism, arising out of one source, governed by what Jesus called the single eye, or what scientists might call today the intelligence of light. So, looking at this animation from another point of view, and please keep in mind that we're speaking of consciousness here in dualistic terms, as having an implicate and explicate order, when in actuality, consciousness is one reality, not two. But we're dividing it up into parts because that's what the mind does. It divides things up conceptually. So recognizing this, that we're communicating conceptually, it can be said that the implicate and explicate orders also represent different levels of conscious awareness. One that is conceptual, the explicate, that's limited to concepts and thoughts, while the other, the implicate, is non-conceptual, therefore boundless or pure, or as Paul put it, uncorrupted by images and thoughts. But the two working together, much like yin and yang, encompass the overall movement of consciousness as a whole. One cannot be without the other. Concepts would not appear if there was no conscious awareness to witness them. Let's now imagine that the line between the black implicate order and the red explicate order shown here represents the moment when consciousness is manifesting into the subtlest of forms at the subatomic level by means of the energized intelligence of light. In this moment, alive with activity, manifestations arise and appear in the explicate order out of the ever-present potential held in the implicate order that underlies all creation. This process that occurs continuously is the eternal movement of consciousness, never beginning, never ending, but always now. Pure awareness, like the implicate order, is present at all times, everywhere at once, and is therefore aware of the parts at all times, everywhere at once. But conceptual awareness, which is limited to images and thoughts, much like the explicate order would be if it were an entity unto itself, is incapable of being aware of the whole, which includes the implicate out of which all awareness comes. The whole begets the part, but the part does not beget the whole. In fact, the explicate order would not manifest at all if it were not for the presence of the implicate order, out of which all manifestations arise. Bohm also pointed out that no subatomic particle is a separate entity unto itself. An electron, for instance, is a negatively charged potential that is enfolded throughout the universe as a whole via the implicate-explicate order of exchange. Electrons are no more substantive or permanent than the form a geyser assumes as it gushes out of the ground. When a scientific instrument detects an electron in space, what is actually being detected is the electron's negative potential, which is enfolded into the explicate order at all times, everywhere at once. Rather than separate entities, subatomic particles represent aspects of the movement of consciousness, arising out of the implicate potential into the explicate order of things. This movement, with respect to the nature of consciousness, has been spoken of by enlightened beings for thousands of years, long before modern physics came into play. Tibetan Buddhists, for example, refer to these two aspects of conscious expression, the implicate and explicate, as the void and non-void. The void is said to be indivisible and indescribable and gives birth to all things in the universe, while the non-void, full of objects and form, is illusory, appearing and disappearing at the will of the void. The primary objective of a Zen Buddhist is to be made holistically aware. Knowing that pure consciousness does not awaken through intellectual pursuits, a Zen Buddhist waits patiently for non-conceptual insights into the nature of reality to arise from within. In the Hindu tradition, Bohm's implicate order is called Brahman. Brahman is formless consciousness that gives birth to all form. The phenomenal aspect of the universe is called Maya, and like Bohm's explicate order, Maya is considered illusionary, transitory, and unreal. In Hindu cosmology, matter emerges from consciousness, not consciousness from matter. And like Adam, who was lost in the tree of knowledge, being lost in the illusion of Maya prevents one from awakening unto the truth of what actually is. Likewise, Christian mystics have long known that the teachings of Jesus pointed to a new level of conscious awareness that is now flowering within humankind. Like Bohm's implicate order, God is seen as the one and only source and the eternal presence behind all that is. This threshold between the implicate and explicate orders, spoken of since ancient times, is what distinguishes consciousness as conceptualized phenomena in the space-time universe from pure consciousness at rest, absolute and still. Nothing that appears in the universe as concepts of mind is divisible from consciousness at rest. And consciousness, whether at rest or in motion, is always present, here and now, and everywhere at once.